you were concerned about Linda and asked her whether she did a background check on Scott. I don't think a lot of people do background checks before they start dating someone. So why were you concerned?
I just felt that this was all happening too fast. The stories she was telling us about him and how quickly they fell in love with each other, the pet names they were calling each other within 2 weeks, and the plans that they were making. I just felt like this is not sounding right to me. So I just asked her, "Did you Google him? Did you look him up?" And she assured me, "Oh yes, I Googled him. I looked him up." On reflection, now I'm wondering if she was maybe hedging the truth a little bit. So that's why I wanted to dive in to try to figure this all out.
So before I ask you another question, Shelley, I want to ask you, Linda, I've seen so many different shows where scammers will say, you're my queen, you're my wife, but they never really call you by your first name, do they?
No, yeah, I was a queen and he was the king. And that's, the name of our book, Her King the Con. But at the time, there's a lot more information that has come out since I was scammed. I had no idea, no clue in the world that they used this ruse of king and queen so that they didn't have to remember every person, every woman's name that they might be talking to.
Now, Shelley, when did you think that Scott was a scammer?
I thought I was getting input from other people who Linda knows, and everybody was agreeing this is not right. This is looking very shady. So I think because all of us were on the same page, her friends, her closest relatives, that, yeah, we realized pretty soon that this was not going to end well. But in the back of my mind, after every story Linda told me about him, I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to be true for her too. So I think I was the last one of the group to really come kicking and screaming that we had to do something about this. That's when we got serious and we hired a private investigator and so on and so forth.
Well, of course you want it to be real. She's your sister. And
Yeah.
you want, your sister, your friend. I mean, we all want to be happy for people that are close to us because we want them to be happy as well. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the private investigator, but first, Linda, I want to ask you, you were becoming brainwashed. Like, when did this begin and how helpless did you feel? And how did you realize you were brainwashed as well?
Well, I'll tell you, it was quite a revelation when I did finally realize, because first of all, I had to acknowledge before anything could happen that, in fact, this was not real. And then after that processing and then just, reflecting and looking back at what had happened to me, that's when the realization of how brainwashed I was. And that's when I realized too, how good they were. They were really, really good. The only thing I would say, Elizabeth, that I think looking back that I learned from is that when you set up your profile, your dating profile, to keep information at a minimum. I put my whole life out there, everything that I felt, what I wanted. And so all they had to do was just come along and go, oh, bing, bing, bing. Okay, perfect. Here you go. So they're very, very good at what they do. And even if you're the smartest woman in the world, which I'm not claiming to be by any means, but even, of average intelligence, they were really good at what they did.
Linda, you touch about something that's really important. There's two things here. Number one, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It's actually how distracted you are. People don't realize that when you're distracted, this is when you become like a full-on victim. But you kept saying the word they. It's not just one person that you're dealing with.
No, not at all. And that's why I say the sophistication level of this group that got me. I know that there were people that were priming him, that were, that had
supervising him. They were supervising him.
Definitely supervising. And he also had to come up with a certain amount of money. He had expectations on his end that he needed to get from me to pay the boss.
So he had a quota per day?
Yes, he had a quota. Yes, definitely. And he had a timeline. And so that's when a lot of the pressure would come in, when he would really start, because I would say, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. Oh, but, and that's when the pressure would come in. And he told me a little bit about it at the very end. I think you know that in the book, Elizabeth, I did talk to my scammer months later. when he told me a lot of what, he had gone through on his end. And so that is one of the things that he told me, is that he was part of a group.